Bell Time by Sophie Tuvey, Chapter 5. So, you're a qualified minibus driver, Michael says casually when we meet at the sink, making end-of-the-day drinks. Yes, I say, crushing my tea bag with a little more force than necessary. You? He gives a curt nod. But I bet you haven't done the county certificate, I say, with more than a little self-satisfaction. What is that? He looks riled. Perfect. County policy, I say, grabbing my milk and sloshing it about. Not only do you need to have a Category D licence, you also need to get the county's very own certificate in order to drive a minibus for an educational institution in this local authority. How do I get this certificate? He snaps, pressing buttons on his coffee machine. Jan in the office will book you in for a course. They usually occur every 6 months or so. 6 months? He repeats, his eyebrows shooting up in disbelief. Why is everything here so inefficient? No wonder all the schools are struggling. We are not struggling. I slam the fridge door shut. We are just underfunded. You're not underfunded, you're just throwing money away by having people in positions who don't do their job. We glare at each other. I feel I ought to defend Liz, but even to name her would be to incriminate her as one of those people. So I'm in the passenger seat then, he says finally. I don't see why you invited yourself at all. You can't go by yourself. You need a 2:14 ratio. What, has he memorised the staff handbook already? All 74 boring pages? Well, there's only 7 in the group, I counter. That's why we're going to invite my Year 11 boys group as well. Seriously? We can't fit all of them on the bus. They won't all want to come, but we can offer 7 places. First come, first served, he says, taking a sip of his coffee. He has a plain white mug. No pattern, nothing. You've got this all figured out nicely, haven't you? Well, be honest, you had no idea it was even on at the theatre, he scoffs. And you did? Does it matter? I'm not the one being all self-righteous about who deserves to go on the trip or not. I take a scalding hot gulp of tea, trying not to choke. Look, I don't mind booking the tickets, he begins. I'll do it. I wave my hand dramatically. It's my trip, and if you want to gate crash, then fine, but I'm running it. He raises an eyebrow coolly. Okay, as long as you're happy with that. I stomp off to my room, spilling half my tea as I go. My anger fades considerably when I see my mentor group's reaction the day I give out trip letters. We're going on a trip? Connor clutches it as if it's a golden ticket. No one ever takes us on trips. Do we get to miss school? It's a matinee, I explain. We leave at 12 and get back at 6. Is it just our class? Lacey asks. Well, not exactly, I falter. We need to fill the minibus, so Mr. Chase is inviting some of his Year 11 class to come as well. Who's in that class? I start to list some names. Jaden, Ollie, Tyler. The kids start to wince. But look, whoever comes, you all need to be there because we're going to have a great time. I say it to convince myself more than them. The term rolls on, and I'm swamped with marking, planning, emails, and now trip admin to top it all off. When it gets to 10 p.m, I make myself stop working, but I can't face even opening my story document, given that I've spent all evening on the laptop anyway. The days get shorter, and when it rains, almost every day, the heavy cloud blocks any sunlight so that it feels permanently dark. Jeff gets his promotion and disappears more and more into the corridors of senior team, and Liz disappears too. She's gone on the sick, Judy tells me, showing me a text message covertly. It's all too much and I can't cope. That's exactly what they wanted. What? You mean they wanted her to cave? They're putting the advert out, Judy says. They wanted her well and truly out of the way. No prizes for guessing who's going to get it. Who? I ask. Judy indicates her head towards Michael, who is packing his reams of photocopying and organising the handouts by class with post-its in a large copy box. Surely there'll be other candidates, I hiss. I doubt it. Judy shakes her head. You've seen the news reports. Who wants to come and work in a school that might be shut down in a year or two? This is a failing school, Jen. Most people are applying for jobs elsewhere, desperate to leave. Are you? I panic. If I lose Judy... Don't be silly. She waves her hand, gold bangles on her wrist. I'm retiring in a year anyway. So soon? I thought you had 5 years to go. I chatted with Bill. We decided to cut loose earlier. She shrugs. Look around you, Jen. Everyone is stressed out to the max. It isn't worth it. If Michael becomes head of department, he'll change everything. I think about my mentor group. You can try and fight the system, Judy says, but you'll just get exhausted. Let the new head appoint his guy, and you just carry on being awesome. How can I if he shuts down my favourite class in the name of Dickensian utilitarianism? Well, you can always apply for it, she says in a cavalier manner. The worst that can happen is that you don't get it. You've got nothing to lose. But the more I think about it, the more I realise I do. Scenario 1. I don't apply for the job. Michael gets it uncontested. Michael is unbearable. Michael cancels my mentor group and ruins the school. Michael becomes my boss. I run away and join the circus. Scenario 2. I apply for the job. I have to work for hours to come up with all the brilliant, innovative things I've done in the last 5 years. I get a token gesture interview and I have to teach an all-singing, all-dancing lesson in front of someone scary. Then I get grilled by David Clark, who's currently pretending he doesn't remember who I am. Michael gets the job. Michael is unbearable, and so revert to scenario 1. The fact is, I'm not sure I have the energy for scenario 2, especially given that the outcome seems cemented in David Clark's hair wax. I'm struggling to stay afloat with the normal workload of being a plebeian teacher. I can't even handle Michael's Year 11 boys group, though I'm not going to admit that to him. Initially, they seemed okay. They weren't very quiet and they weren't very quick to do anything, but they weren't out of control. Now I'm not so sure. Some of them have been rocking up to the lesson 15 or 20 minutes late. I mean, I have no idea where they've been. I can't leave the class to look for them. All I can do is phone the office and report that they're not in the lesson. Jan writes their names down on a piece of paper and then who knows what happens next. As much as I love my pineapple shirt, I heard Tyler singing Agadoo the other day, and it felt as much of a racial slur as him making fun of the pineapple print, but he's too sly for me to be able to pin anything on him. I know they find English completely boring, and it's the last thing they want to do after lunch as the last lesson of the day. The scheme of work Michael's asked me to use with them to complement what he's doing involves a lot of writing practice. I don't mind writing tasks, but they just seem to have no ideas to write about. A typical task might be, write a letter to your head teacher with your views on school uniform. I stand there looking at a class where half of them are lounging around in hoodies and some of them are wearing skinny jeans. Ollie, take the hoodie off, please, I say brusquely. You look like you're about to go bowling rather than sit in an English lesson. None of them shout open defiance, but they keep their hoodies on and wait for me to give up asking. I can either turn into a hen-pecking nag and basically waste the entire lesson trying to fight battles about uniform, or I can selectively ignore it and try to move on. I pick the latter. What is positive about school uniform? I ask, my board pen poised. Tumbleweed. Tyler? He shrugs. Costs too much, Jaden says. That's a disadvantage, I say as I write it down, although I find it ironic given how much Superdry hoodies and Nike trainers cost, all of which I see exhibited on a regular basis. It's restrictive. Now Tyler decides to speak up. Soon we have a lot of points on the board for why school uniform is the bane of their lives. I turn and see them all, still lounging back in their chairs, their exercise books open, but the pages still blank. Come on, you need to write this down, I say. Haven't got a pen, Tyler smirks. I sigh and open my desk drawer. Every week I'm getting through a bag of biros. You're going to struggle in school without a pen, I say as I hand it over. With a lot of chivying, it takes about 10 minutes to get them to write down what's on the board, and I have to circulate the room constantly. It feels like as soon as I move away, they're off task again. I'm giving you this sheet with some useful connectives and persuasive phrases, I say, dishing out A4 handouts. I'd like you to choose 5, then write 5 full sentences, each with a different reason why the head should get rid of school uniform, seeing as you're all so passionate about this. Passionate is definitely an exaggeration, but maybe if I say it, it'll come true. I give them 5 minutes of writing time, but there are a lot of conversations going on and not a lot of pens on paper. Time is nearly up, I say, with my giant countdown on the board. 3, 2, 1. The klaxon sounds and I stand at the board waiting. Tyler is passing a bag of sweets under the desk to Ollie, then a pen sails through the air and hits Jaden, who grabs it and prepares to throw it back. No throwing in this class, I say. I'm still waiting. Then Michael comes through the door, probably to use my room as a corridor again, and they all instantly fall quiet and straighten up in their seats. Hoodie, off, now. Ollie scowls but takes it off. I hope this class is behaving, Michael says, surveying the room with beady eyes. We're just about to write some sentences about school uniform, I say brightly. Appropriate. He walks through and out of the other door. Taking advantage of the silence, I launch into the next task. Once the lesson is over and I look through their books, I feel the sinking frustration that they've barely written a quarter of what I asked them. They are chronically lazy, disengaged, and they seem to have decided that my lessons are pointless and they don't need to do any work. I mark the books in red pen and write comments like, "You need to write more in the time given." But realistically, I can't use many effective consequences on them for not doing the work. If I ask them to see me for detention, they will forget because I only teach them once a week. If I ask them to take their book home to finish off, I'll never see it again. With all these book scrutinies that David seems keen on, I can't risk that. I flick through Tyler's book. Messy dates and titles, etched underneath with a line of pen but no ruler, half-empty pages. I hope his name doesn't come up on the dreaded list. I'm not winning with this class. I sigh and reflect that if I was 6 foot tall, a bloke who played rugby, then I would be able to walk in and they'd all go quiet for me. But instead, I'm 5'5", I still get ID'd, and I can't be the sergeant major that Michael seems to be. Every time I sneak a look into his classroom, the kids are all silently scribing essays in their pristine books. I can't compete with that. The WC girls voice moral support on the group chat. Claire: You're a great teacher, Jen. Don't let this new guy get to you. Dina: Why don't you come down the train this Saturday? We can have a laugh and you can chill out for a bit. I reply, Sorry, I've got a list of students and I have to hand their books in for scrutiny on Monday. Maybe another time. David's regime is well and truly underway. We have visits from outside agencies, learning walks where random senior leaders stroll into the classroom, pick up a few books at random, then scribble onto a clipboard and walk out again. The book scrutinies begin in earnest. A list of names is emailed to staff on a weekly basis. We have to submit these books for examination to check that we are marking them and giving feedback, and that the students have improved their work too. When I arrive in the morning, I walk past Michael's room and see him marking at his desk. Every day when I leave, I'm struggling with a box of books precariously balanced with my other bags. You are a health and safety liability, Michael tells me, intercepting me one day as I shuffle down the concrete steps without being able to see past the mountain of sheer bulk of paperwork, exercise books, all the rubbish I'm holding. He takes the marking box from me easily, as if it was a pillow. Is it one of your hobbies to read the school's policies from 1991? I snap back. You need to get out more. You clearly don't have much social life if you're taking all this home. He's right, darn it. Well, at least my books will be immaculate, I exaggerate. He gives a snort. I'm sure they will rival the art department with all that colouring in you've been doing. My cheeks flare. He's referring to the goals sheet which I used with the boys group, but I also used it with the mentor group and got them to decorate it so they could feel invested and proud and make a positive start to their exercise book, which will then be filled up with red pen as I underline their spelling mistakes. I don't need to justify myself to you, I say with dignity. You're not an inspector. You'll have a new head of department soon, he replies. Just saying what it looks like as an outsider. We've reached the bottom of the steps and we're facing each other. He's still holding the box. Maybe if you didn't use my classroom as a corridor, you wouldn't keep disturbing my lessons and making my classes lose focus, I accuse. How would you like it if I kept walking into your lessons? You're welcome any time, he says without missing a beat. Isn't that encouraged for creating a professional learning community? Every time he says things like this, I always feel so inferior, so underqualified. Is this the effect he wants? I've been here for 5 years and he doesn't look much older than me. How long have you been teaching? I ask. 8 years. I do the maths. If he did teacher training after uni, he's probably about 29, 3 years older than me. It is part of my role of being here as a leading practitioner, he adds. He's unbearable. Why has no one told him this yet? What about you? He asked suddenly. What are your ambitions? Right now? To punch him in the face, but I don't say that. Well, I hesitate. I want to sound cool, calm, and confident. But the truth is that my ambitions this year are to buy a house and redraft my story, and I don't want to tell him that and give him more ammunition to fire questions at me. Do you want to go for the hod job? So this is what this is all about. He probably followed me here just so we could have this supposedly spontaneous conversation. Do you? I feel it's better to put off answering. Curious? Not very neutral. Yes, he says simply. You? I'm thinking about it. I try to sound vague, which isn't difficult given my uncertainty about pretty much everything we're talking about. Sometimes I wonder why you chose secondary when you seem more geared towards primary. He doesn't speak with any malice, but his point is clear. He doesn't think I'm good enough to teach older students. I should be running painting sessions with the nursery. I like working with a mix of students, I say, trying to keep my cool. Can I have my box back? I haven't offended you, have I? He says, not relinquishing the box. Let me carry these to your car. I don't need you to do that. I try to take the box, and he pulls it out of my reach. You need to accept my apology first. You didn't apologise. I'm sorry, he says, looking at me with those piercing grey eyes, the colour of storm clouds. They're strangely hypnotic, glowing with energy. It has to be said, they don't convey sorriness at all. I don't believe you. What, do you want me to write a sonnet about it? He sounds annoyed. An ode would be better, more lines. People say I'm difficult to work with. Yes, because you go around judging everyone. Just at that moment, David passes by to walk up the steps. He pauses. Great books, Michael. SLT were really impressed. He continues to walk, ignoring me completely. I stare after him, a mixture of embarrassment and hatred pouring flames of heat into my cheeks. Michael has the grace to look uncomfortable. Shall I carry these to your car then? I said no, thank you. I snatch the box, and catching him by surprise, I'm successful this time. I huff as I walk off, not giving him a chance to respond, and hate the fact that my arms begin to ache within minutes. Stupid, weak arms. I need to start weightlifting. But it's worth it to save telling him I don't have a car.